Okay. And hello, everyone. And I want to thank you for joining me here today. And I am so excited to have my friend Paula Meyer with me here today. Paula, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're going to talk a little bit about what you've been up to lately, what you've got coming up. You have had some awesome and some very exciting things coming up. So I wanted to share with my friends and my guest here what you've been doing. You recently wrote a book and it's just being launched and right now we have some great things happening with this. Tell us a little bit about the book and what brought you to this place of writing it.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Peggy. Yeah, so my book just launched on Tuesday on Amazon, and I have a picture of it. I know this probably looks backward.
No, it
No,
looks
does
straight
it look
up.
right? Oh, cool. Yesterday it looked backwards when I was sharing it. So anyway, my book is called Great Loss, Greater Love. And it's about my, actually about the last 2 years, so 2019, 2020 timeframe. It started when I decided that I wanted to help other women going through grief, through all kinds of grief. My husband, Gary, died June 1st, 2018 from throat cancer. And so I had some physical challenges, you know, that come along with grief when you're not allowing yourself to feel it. And I had been suppressing all those feelings, actually, even before Gary died. I mean, he had battled throat cancer for 4 years. And so towards the end there, I was his caregiver. And, you know, I just spent all of my waking moments taking care of him or doing my job. And I didn't take care of myself at all. And what ended up happening after he passed in June, I found myself on my 55th birthday on November 12th in the emergency room having my appendix out. And I realized that, you know, I had been actually getting clues for a couple of years prior to that surgery that something was amiss, and I just kept ignoring it. I just didn't want to deal with it. I felt I had more important things to deal with. So anyway, after that surgery, I went home to Colorado for the holidays and really did some soul searching and decided that I needed to put myself first. I hadn't done that for so many years. And if I was going to heal physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, I needed to, you know, set everything else aside and take care of myself. So on January 2nd, I resigned my job and I went on a year of travel. So early March 2019 is when I went on my year of travel. So the book actually goes through from March 2019 all the way to the end of 2020, and I share my year of travel and all the different places I went, the things I did, the strategies I used to help me cope with my grief. And I also share flashbacks to Gary. You know, how did I meet Gary? His illness, his death, and what came after. And then when my year of travel ended in March of 2020, all the lockdowns started happening for the COVID-19 pandemic. And I was in New York City for a conference. I stopped in Denver to visit my family, and I ended up getting sidelined in Denver for most of the lockdown because I couldn't go to Washington State where I was living at the time. So during that time, I had a lot of time to think about, you know, what do I want to do? I had just started my new event planning business and had to reschedule or cancel or take virtual many events that I had in the works. So it was a really challenging time. And what I ended up finding out or discovering in the process was that, you know, all of the tools that I had used on my year of travel to cope with Gary's death were the same things to use during the pandemic with all the grief that was coming from that. You know, the grief of losing my freedom, of my job being in limbo, no income coming in, fear of, you know, what's going to happen, what does the future hold. And so I started practicing a lot of those things that I had done after Gary's death with this. And so the book talks about all of that, and it also incorporates at the end of each chapter a activity to do. And so some thought-provoking questions, some journaling things that you can do, and also a daily thing that I started doing during my year of travel that helped me stay present. And that's what I call it's called the Day Tripper Challenge. And every day I'm looking for something to be grateful for. It's 3 things I'm looking for: something to be grateful for, something to laugh about, and something divine. So when I started each day doing that, it helped me when grief started coming in, or I started feeling sad or mad or whatever, I could remember, okay, I've already created these feelings within me that I can replace the sadness and the grief and enjoy my day and be present. So, and that was the whole purpose of the travel, was to just really get present and to become the new me. You know, I was trying to figure out who Paula without Gary was. So, so yeah, so the book, it's been really fun. It took me about 8 months to write it. The hardest part to write about was his death. And I ended up, you know, kind of taking a little break in that 8 months, and it's just like, I just don't feel like writing. And I didn't really know why I didn't want to write. But then as I started writing, I realized, oh, I'm right into this, the meatiest part of the book. But it was good therapy. You know, it's, you know, one of the things you and I both talk about with grief is you got to feel it. You got to really allow yourself to feel it, to acknowledge it, to ask questions, look for guidance, and move it through so you can bring higher energy in. So, so it was really great. And so this launched Tuesday, like I said, and we're still currently in the launch period. So if anybody's feel like they could use this, and this book isn't just for women, it's a great story for anybody. And right now you can download a free Kindle version if you go to the link, and we can post that link in the chat. I can get that posted in there. And so if you go to the link, there's 2 options at the top right of the screen, and you pick the second button, which is buy now for free, or buy now for 1 click, depending on whether you're Amazon Prime or not. And yeah, you can get it for free. So it's free through midnight Saturday. And I'm just excited about the book, my story. I really feel like one of the hardest things when we're grieving is to share our story. And we're afraid of being judged. We're afraid of lots of things, you know, come into place. And for me, it's all about voice. You know, both Gary and I, you know, his illness was throat cancer. That's what he died from. And him and I both had challenges with expression our whole lives. And so we knew we're both big believers in our thoughts create our reality, our emotional, every illness is based on an emotional challenge, and expression sits in this 5th chakra. And that's where his cancer was. And so it was an opportunity for both of us to learn about that. And then for me to continue both of our stories after he passed. So it's you know, it's been really great for me to feel comfortable expressing and sharing my story. And hopefully it'll be a good story for others to hear. So yeah, that's the book.
That's amazing, Paula. And, you know, because we've connected on different things here, and, you know, having read your book, and our stories are just so similar, even those timelines. You know, Gary was in June of 2018. My son passed in December of 2018. March of 2019 I didn't take a year-long sabbatical. I did take a 3-week road trip, but not a year-long. And it was that time to find myself and regroup and really pull myself together and figure out who I am. I mean, the losses are different, you know, a child versus a spouse, but it's still figuring out where you want to go and how to survive this traumatic time.
Right.
And it's like, rather than having our loss define us, we can use that loss to refine us. And so you've done an amazing job with that. You know, you've pulled together a book, and I just love the fact that we're both on that same level of the health and wellness, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, because those answers have come out of the ashes of what we've experienced. But yours is totally different. You know, they're different, but they're similar. And I like that because people can look at that. And what I like to encourage people is take what you like and leave the rest, in which you can say, hey, you know what, this is our opportunity to really find what works. Because, you know, just my story has started even 30 years ago when I lost my first child. And then 28 years later, lost another child, and in between other family losses. So I accumulated all those resources. And now that they've been able to be put to use, but it was like, take what I liked, what I learned, and how I applied it and what that works for it. And the other thing I like about this so much, Paula, is, you know, that I don't have the big letters and the credentials behind me as the formal education, but I have that streetwise experience where we can bring that, and really, I think that we can relate to those who are grieving, who've experienced the different type of losses much better, because we know when it's like, okay, I'm having a bad day, so do I express my gratitude? Do I define my divinity? And those are the things, those are the tools and resources. So I'm just really excited that you have this book out there, and it's as a resource to help others through it. So that's, it's, the name of the book is Great Loss, Greater Love. And so, you know, I've got the link in here, and I'll put that into our live comments as well, and how you can get that for free through Amazon through Tuesday, which is exciting. And this is Paula's gift to you. Saturday? Thank you. Gift to you to be able to do this. And I just encourage you to take that opportunity to get it, receive it. And if you find that somebody else you know is struggling, share this with them, because it's such practical tools and applicable tips which you can use. And it's not, I mean, the topic is heavy, but you know, to find joy and laughter in your day is just amazing, and how that can elevate your mood. So that's amazing with what you've done. And so we've connected over this common grief, which is a new way to find that companionship and that community and that connection. So speaking about connection and community, I'm really excited about what you have coming up, and even more excited because I get to be a part of this. So you have a grief summit coming up. Why don't you share with us a little bit more about what that is on the big scale, and what inspired even that to come about?
Okay. Actually, I worked with a grief coach for about 1.5 years, and her and I actually produced a couple of live in-person retreats before COVID came along. We had one in September of 2019, and then one in January of 2020. And the first one was for widows only. Her and I were both widows. When I chose my grief coach, I wanted to work with a widow. And so the first one was widows only, but we got a lot of people as we were promoting it. They were saying, you know, well, what about the loss of a child, or the loss of a parent, or do we have to be married to, you know, if I've lost a life partner? What about divorce? What about other kinds of losses? And so the second one that we did, we broke it up into 4 areas. So we had my grief coach talking about focusing on widows or losing life partners. Another friend of mine talked about losing a parent. Another friend talked about losing a child, and another friend talked about divorce. And then we broke up into breakout sessions during different parts of the retreat on that weekend. And then we talked about doing a virtual summit, because, you know, a lot of times people, you know, when you're grieving, sometimes there's fear of, at the time there was fear of travel, not because of COVID, but you know, sometimes people just don't like to travel, especially a widow that may have lost her husband or her life partner and wasn't comfortable traveling or whatever. And so we thought a virtual one would be really good for people that for whatever reason can't travel. Maybe their health keeps them from traveling, or maybe they just don't want to travel, right? So so that was kind of the origins of this virtual summit that I've got coming up next week. It's April 22 to 25. It's called Gloom to Bloom, Transforming the Grief Landscape. And it's based on a garden theme. So it's a 4-day event. And one thing that I want to share with everybody is it's not 4 days of being sad and crying and gloom, gloom, gloom. It's really about, it's going to be fun. We're going to be inspired. We have a lot of great speakers. I've curated 19 speakers, including you, Peggy. So 20 if you count me, because I'll be teaching a little bit of my stuff every day. And the speakers range the gamut from all kinds of loss. We have a lady that had a serious illness, one that lost all of her business, blew up in the recession or whatever of 2008 that happened, and her marriage fell apart too. People with difficult childhoods. So there's lots of other grief besides death that can bring on the same heavy emotions. And so I wanted to create something that was it is for women, and I wanted to create a safe place where women can go. Now there are 6 male speakers at this summit, and the reason that I brought them in is that I know all of them very well. They're really really spiritual, smart, great speakers, great content, great story, and I think we can learn from them. So basically the 4 days starts on a Thursday, goes through Sunday, and the first day is all about prepping our soil. So when you create a flower garden, right, you make sure you've got everything going right with your soil. You start with that. So we'll be hearing about a lot of different types of grief and ways to that we can begin starting to prep our soil so we can step forward and move through it. Day 2 is all about planting seeds. So we'll hear a lot of inspirational talks about planting seeds. The 3rd day is about tending my garden. So even when your garden starts to, the buds or the seeds start sprouting and the flowers are starting to bud, you still need to tend to it, right? You got to water it, you got to fertilize it, all that good stuff. And then the 4th day is about spirit and blooming. So we're going from, hard, sad, gloomy stuff all the way through bloom. And Peggy, you'll be speaking on the 1st day and sharing your story about your son's death. And maybe you can just share with us a little bit about what you're planning to, not the whole thing, but just maybe a little snippet on what you plan to talk
absolutely
about.
Well, Paula, I am so excited that you brought together this grief summit and the Gloom to Bloom theme with that, because there are so many different areas of grief, and we think of death as sometimes just the one and only, but within even loss like that, we have the parent and we have the sibling and we have the child, then we have the types and modalities of that, which can be accident or cancer or self-inflicted. And so that's where I come in with this. Like I said, I mentioned I've experienced a lot of different types of loss, but more recently when my son took his life, I found that suicide was so unique in the fact that it's ultimately that person's decision. Now, not agreeing that it's a good decision, but it is that decision in which it pains those who are left to survive, and understanding why they make that decision the best we can. Right. Because unfortunately, so many times suicide, death, those who choose that, it is by choice and most likely impacted by life circumstances or even mental illness. And so as I've been learning more and more about this, I find that other suicide loss survivors don't have quite that understanding of what really was that cause, and helping them to be able to release that responsibility in wanting to, be the one who could have solved, fixed, controlled what happened. So bringing that into perspective of what suicide loss really is, in understanding the uniqueness, the complexities of it. And then I think having that as a foundation, then you're able to kind of like, okay, I understand a little bit more. Now I'm able to start on my healing journey. And so, and I come with a background of personal training, nutritionist, and wellness coaching. And so understanding that the basic of even taking care of yourself physically, because as you mentioned in your book, is that we have tendency to totally neglect that self-care and that physical aspect of it. But if you're not taking care of that, then it has an impact on the brain. You know, even if you're not moving, or if you don't get those endorphins flowing into your body. And so this is where I bring all these years of experience, professional experience into play and go, you know what, this is what I have found has worked. So I talk about that uniqueness of suicide. And then I, when I really focused or decided what it was the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And now I have chosen to call those the 4 cornerstones of healing. And say this is where my personal experience is different than yours, but they're really some of the very same basic things. But then somebody can go, yeah, this is how I can apply this to me. And that's how it works. So it's that opportunity to bring in that uniqueness and talk about it. So you know, it's just, I'm very excited for this. First of all, because it's virtual. And so we have people who can attend, you know, nationally and internationally. Mm-hmm. So I am definitely excited about that and the other people that we have, because they're covering all these other aspects. Yeah. And the thing is that even though I'm talking about suicide, it applies to natural causes. It applies to even, you know, recovering from the loss of a loved pet, or a relationship, a divorce. So what you learn throughout those 4 days is going to apply to your life overall. So I encourage everybody to register for that and join us. And so why don't you share some more details on the registration, and let's do that.
I posted the link in the chat, so people can go there and register. There's actually 2 different ticket prices. The general admission is $197, and that basically gets you into the event. There's also a VIP ticket that's $397, and with that you get 3 mornings of yoga before we start. You get 3 after event sessions, what I'm calling Bloom sessions, to kind of help anchor what we're learning. And you also get a recording of the event. And yeah, I think, and probably more importantly is just the community. You know, it's so important when we're grieving. A lot of times, a lot of us think, oh, I'll do it myself. I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to maybe share too much and get emotional with people I don't know. But the thing that's critical to understand is that when you're grieving, we can't do it alone. We need people's support. We need love. We need compassion, and we need role models to show us how to move forward. Otherwise, we get stuck in our grief and we don't know how to help ourselves out. So community is so important, and making sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right community. One of the things that why I love travel so much, and as I was traveling, I went to different events or met different people. And within those new communities, I could be the new me. Those people didn't know me as Paula with Gary, so there was no preconceived ideas about who I should be. And I could very easily present who I want to be with moving people forward that don't know me. And if you pick the right environment or the right community, like you or I, this summit, or I have a private group for women as well. If you pick those communities where everybody's striving to be their best selves, there isn't people throwing you back to where you were in the past and reminding you of who you were. It's all about, let's all rise up together and become this better version of us, so that we have joy and purpose back in our life. So I'm excited to create this community. The other thing that's going to be really great is each day we're creating a blueprint, and it's called the Bloom Blueprint, and it's a 30-day blueprint. Actually, could be 31 if we have a 31 month, right? But it's basically a monthly blueprint that we're creating. And So we create the 4 parts during the event. And then when the event ends on Sunday, we'll have a week to just make sure that we'll meet again for a brief call to make sure everybody's got their blueprint ready to go. And then on Saturday, we start our 30 days. And we're doing it together. So we've created a process, a blueprint of how we're going to change our thinking, change our behavior, and do it together. And so it's not just the 4-day thing and we're done, you know, because I know that doesn't work. You can't just, you know, you have to have people that support you, that hold you accountable, that are cheering you on. And we'll do that together. I'll have a private Facebook group for this this summit, and I'll be in there every day with you and going through the process, and we'll do it together. So I think that's probably the biggest key. And the other thing too, I know sometimes people, like I mentioned earlier, are afraid of being vulnerable with people they don't know. But honestly, sometimes it's easier to be you with people you don't know, because it's like I said earlier about picking a community that doesn't know you.
You know what I call that? I mean, because Connors was a C and I have BC and AC. And it is interesting because I stop and think, it's like, okay, where was this person in relation to my son, you know? And because I could have, you know, identified myself just as Connor's mom, and I see this frequently, Connor's mom forever 24, or I can say, you know, I'm a mother of 4 children and I'm a grief coach and an author, identifying myself as who I am. And so it's important to be able to create that identity as to who we are. And, you know, the fact that this is for women, so many times as women, we have a tendency just to identify only as Gary's wife, you know, our children's, you know, soccer mom, or the, you know, the parent or whatever. But this is that opportunity to really step out and be ourselves, because I'm a big believer. It's like, if Mama Bear ain't happy, nobody's happy, because I can't help anybody when I am down and depressed and distraught and stressed. And my joy comes from helping other people. And to teach people, I know this comes from your heart as well, is that we want women to be able to take care of themselves first without feeling guilty.
Right.
You know, that they can feel like, you know what, because if I take care of myself, I can rise above this and help others. I mean, did you ever think you were going to write a book?
No, you know,
I didn't.
yeah.
No, you know,
and
yeah,
that's one of the key things that I talk about towards the end of the book is, what's the gift? I mean, you have to find the gifts in everything that happens to you, good or bad. And I'm a strong believer that even in the worst of tragedies, every single tragedy, you can find a gift in it. And for me, that gift is this. I've written a book. I'm helping other women, and I would not be doing this if Gary was here. Now, that's not to say I don't wish he was here, but the fact of the matter is he's not, and he's not going to come back. So what good does it serve me to keep thinking of, oh, if he were here, I'd be doing this, or if he were here, I'd be doing that. Well, he's not. So I'm creating my life anew. And that there's a gift in that. So that's another question that's so important to ask yourself, is like, what good things have happened since this tragedy? And, you know, it might be hard to name one, but there, even something very simple is a positive thing. Like, you know, like I went to a movie by myself, or I went to eat at a restaurant by myself, or I went traveling by myself, or I figured out how to take care of my finances, you know, whatever it is, you know, even things that might seem mundane that aren't like, not what you would think of as like life-changing kind of epiphanies. There are those too, but if you can't find those just yet, you will find them down the road if you keep moving. But in the meantime, while you're not sure what those are, look for the simpler things, because we all have some simple things that we've learned through our tragedies that are gifts.
Yeah, reminds me of a country song. Now, I mean, I know it's not dealing with death, but it's the breakup of a relationship, and you know, the woman saying, yeah, I let myself go. I let myself go to dinner. I let myself go traveling. I let myself go shopping, you know, and to give yourself that permission. So it's that same thing, because yes, that's grieving the loss of a relationship, but give yourself that permission. So
Right.
yeah, so we could talk about this all day long, so we are in, my Facebook group, The Grief Specialist, with 2 E's. And, so you have your Facebook group, and so I offer the support, the positive, encouraging support. If you've struggled with Facebook groups and where all you're seeing is continual repeated rawness, and you want to really rise above that, I suggest that you visit our Facebook groups and look for that positive support where we can help you to rise above it. Because when you continue to wallow in the muck, and believe me, I know that you as well, that we have the heart for those who have those new experiences, but you also have that choice in saying, guess what? I want to rise above. And so that's what Paula and I are about. That's what her Grief Summit's about. That's what her book is about, and mine as well. Mine is Life After Child Loss, the Mother Survival Guide to Cope and Find Joy, in which to give you those tools and resources to help you navigate your losses. And that's what we're about. So I have put this, both links for Paula's book and for the Gloom to Bloom Summit, which is along with this live presentation. And we would love to have you join us. And the really cool thing here is we encourage you to share this with others. They may not see this, they may not be aware of it. So tag them, send them the link, invite them to join us, because we know that there's so many people out there that are hurting, don't know that this resource is available. And that's what we're looking for, is for people to help share this. And if it was a friend who recently experienced a loss, a divorce, or, parent who lost a child, or, whatever it may be, but share this, because we can help them through this for the summit. But share it, check it out.
I'm also going to put a link in the chat for my women's group on Facebook too. So if anybody is looking for a community to join, Peggy's in that community also. And it's just a great place where we can be. And Peggy's right, is, there's nothing wrong with wallowing in your hurt and grief for a little bit, but at some point you got to change the story and start rewriting it and creating a new life. And so, we're here to help. We're here to listen and to support and love you through to the next step. And it's just simple little steps that you take every day. It doesn't have to be anything really big, but forward movement is key. So we're here for you.
Yeah, so is there any last comments that you want to add here with us, Paula?
I would love to pull a card for the group. I also came up with, I created a grief card deck, and this is actually for people that have lost a loved one. And it's just kind of fun. They're pictures of, one thing I forgot to say in the book is that the little journal on the cover is my husband's journal. I bought this for him when I was in London, 2015 or 16. And he had only written in like the first 32 pages of it. But then I took this journal on my year of travel. And each of the chapters in the book starts out with a quote from one of his journals. He had several journals, but and then those quotes I created, as I was researching for the quotes, I found a whole bunch of slides. You remember the old slide films that you put in a projector? Back in the day,
yeah. You're dating us, Paula.
Yes. Back in the day, I was like a little baby, right? Back in the day, before I knew him, he was into amateur nature photography, and so I found a lot of great images. I sent them off to get to be created into high-res digital images. And so this grief card deck has got 42 cards in it. 16 are his photos. The rest of them are my photos from my year of travel. And then the quotes are a mix of his and mine. And so ones that I got from his journal, and also ones that I wrote for me. So it's fun, and it's a way to help you start the day with a good thought and a good feeling. And when you feel like you're spiraling down, you can go look at it. The card deck comes with a little magnet, so you can pull your card, put it on the fridge. And it's got a little exercise that goes with it. So anyway, I'm going to pull a card.
Well, this will be our blessing for the day.
This card, this is so funny. You know, if people don't believe that our loved ones are with us in spirit, this is a perfect example. So this card, so there's 42 decks in the card, and I've shuffled them. I threw them on the ground and spread them around. I pulled this card. It's one of Gary's cards. Like I said, he's only got 16 in a deck of 42 cards, and both of my book launches, the majority of the pulls were his cards, and so I just knew he was with us. And then this card I pulled on, I think the second launch party on Tuesday. I pulled it again for somebody else. Or no, I pulled it this morning. This morning I did a live in my group. This is the card that came up, and I pulled it again. So obviously,
so say it slow because I want to include it in our.
I'll show the picture too. But the quote is, "It's okay to speak my truth. My voice matters." And what I love about this is because this is Gary's quote, and like I said earlier, him and I both had challenges with expression, and this was him during his illness, during all of the terribleness that was happening in his throat, tumor, tracheostomy, all of that. Couldn't eat, couldn't taste, any of that kind of stuff, but he could still speak. His voice still mattered regardless. And I just love this because him and I are both working on expressing our voices, me here and him on the other side, right? And it's this image of, it's a sunset beach image. And I chose this quote for this image because, you know, when you think about the beach, the sound of the waves coming in and out is really the voice of the ocean. And so I just love this. I thank you, Gary. I know that you're here with us, and it's just so awesome that he's having his say.
I love it. I love it. Like I said, we could sit here and chat forever. So what I would encourage you to do again is, because this is the type of connection that you're going to feel and see with us on the Grief Summit, the Gloom to Bloom Summit next week, actually the 22nd through the 25th. And so you can purchase tickets. That's all listed in the comments of this live, and would love to have you enjoy and come join us, share it, and look forward to being uplifted. That's what we're here for.
Yes.
Hey, Paula, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate our time together. I'm looking forward to next week. Okay.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for having me, Peggy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. You bet.
Bye, everyone.